First contact. Captain Mira Shepard stood on the bridge of the Terran star ship Endeavour, staring out at the endless expanse of space. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her green eyes narrowed as she studied the readouts on the holodisplay. "Captain, we're picking up an unknown vessel on long-range sensors," said her science officer, Lena Sato. "It's not matching any known ship profiles." Shepard frowned. The Endeavour was at the edge of explored space, far from the usual trade routes and patrol zones. "How far out?" "Approximately 2 light minutes," Sato replied. "And closing fast." "Yellow alert," Shepard ordered. "Raise shields but keep weapons powered down. Let's not appear hostile." Within moments, the bridge dimmed and alert panels began pulsing a soft amber. The crew quickly moved to their battle stations while trying to project an air of calm readiness. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness as the mysterious ship drew closer. Finally, a sleek silver vessel dropped out of superluminal speeds and glided to a relative stop off the Endeavour's port bow. It was smaller than the human ship but had an undeniably predatory silhouette. "We're being hailed," said comms officer Raj Singh. "Audio only." Shepard nodded. "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled to life. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Zalira of the Katesh," said a commanding female voice. "You are trespassing in Veloxian space. Identify yourselves immediately." Shepard straightened her uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Mira Shepard of the TSS Endeavour, representing the Terran Alliance. We are on a mission of peaceful exploration and mean no intrusion. We were unaware this region was claimed by your people." There was a harsh bark of laughter from the other ship. "Peaceful? I see your weapons and your shields, human. Do not pretend with me." "A precaution only," Shepard said calmly. "We're a long way from home." "Home," Zalira sneered. "You mean that ball of rock you call Earth? With its notoriously feeble gravity? It's a wonder your species can even stand, let alone dare to reach for the stars." Shepard felt a flush of anger at the alien captain's dismissive tone. Earth's gravity, while lighter than many worlds, had shaped humans into an enduring and adaptable race. But she knew better than to respond to such obvious baiting. "Captain Zalira, I assure you we have no hostile intentions," Shepard said. "Perhaps we could meet face to face to discuss this situation and avoid any misunderstandings between our peoples." The Veloxian was silent for a long moment before responding, "Very well, human. I will grant you an audience aboard your own vessel. But know that if this is a deception, I will destroy you and your pathetic ship." The channel cut off abruptly and Shepard sank back in her chair, rubbing the bridge of her nose. Her first officer, Jack Tanner, stepped over. The tall man had a wiry frame and sharp features. "Captain, are you sure this is wise? We know nothing about these aliens or their capabilities. Meeting with this Zalira puts you at unnecessary risk." "The risk of not meeting is greater," Shepard replied. "This is first contact, Jack. We have to handle this right. Prepare the conference room and assemble an honor guard. Let's show the good captain some human hospitality." Tanner looked unhappy but nodded crisply. "Aye, Captain." He spun on his heel and strode off to make the arrangements. Shepard turned back to the view screen, studying the alien ship hovering just off her bow. She couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would change the course of history. For better or worse, humanity was about to take another step into a wider universe. And she prayed they were ready for it. A fragile truce. Captain Zalira materialized on the transporter pad of the TSS Endeavour, flanked by 2 hulking bodyguards. Her tall, muscular frame was clad in form-fitting black and silver armor, a stark contrast to the crisp blue uniforms of the human crew. She carried herself with the coiled grace of a predator, her golden eyes sweeping the room with cool appraisal. Mira Shepard stepped forward, fighting the instinct to place a hand on the sidearm at her hip. Welcome aboard the Endeavour, Captain Zelira. I'm Dash. I know who you are, Zelira cut in, her voice a low purr. The vaunted Captain Shepard, hero of the Terran Alliance. She took a step off the transporter pad, and stumbled as the ship's Earth-standard gravity caught her by surprise. Zelira's guards reached out to steady her, but she shrugged them off with a snarl. Shepard carefully schooled her features, hiding a flicker of satisfaction. My apologies, Captain. I should have warned you that our ship maintains a gravity field similar to Earth's surface. It can take some adjustment for those used to lower gravitational forces. The Veloxian straightened to her full height, a good head taller than Shepard. I have no need for adjustment, human. I am a warrior of the Katesh. We adapt and overcome. Despite her bravado, Shepard could see the tension in Zelira's powerful frame as she fought against the unfamiliar pull of the ship's artificial gravity. The alien took a measured step forward, then another, her movements carefully controlled. Of course, Shepard said smoothly. Please, follow me to the conference room. We have much to discuss. As they walked through the Endeavour's gleaming corridors, Shepard couldn't help but notice how Zelira's guards dwarfed the human security detail. They were easily 7 feet tall and bulging with dense muscle, their armor studded with wicked-looking spikes. She made a mental note to have her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Tara Vasquez, assess their offensive capabilities. The conference room was a large, airy space with a sweeping view of the stars. A long table stood in the center, surrounded by plush chairs. Shepard took a seat at one end and gestured for Zelira to sit at the other. The Veloxian captain lowered herself into the chair, her movements stiff but controlled. So, Captain, Shepard began, lacing her fingers together on the table. You claim this region of space belongs to your people. The Terran Alliance was unaware of any such claim. Zelira leaned back, draping one arm over the back of her chair in a casual display of dominance. The Veloxian Empire has laid claim to this sector for generations. Your ignorance is not our concern. Shepard fought down a spark of irritation. The Alliance has no desire for conflict with your empire. Surely we can come to some mutual understanding, a sharing of territory and resources. The alien captain laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Sharing? The strong do not share with the weak, human. They take what they want. Under the table, Shepard clenched her fists. This was going nowhere fast. She opened her mouth to respond. And the room exploded in a flash of blinding light and searing heat. Shepard was thrown from her chair, slamming into the bulkhead with bone-jarring force. Emergency alarms blared as the acrid stench of smoke filled the air. Report. Shepard barked, staggering to her feet. Her head throbbed and her vision swam, but she pushed through the pain. Some kind of explosive device, Captain, Vasquez replied, coughing as she pulled herself from the rubble. Detonated under the table. Shepard whirled, searching for Zelira and found the Veloxian captain pinned beneath a fallen beam, her golden eyes clouded with pain. One of her guards lay unmoving nearby, his armor blackened and smoking. The other was nowhere to be seen. Get a medical team in here, now. Shepard ordered, crouching beside Zelira. The alien's breathing was labored, her face twisted in a grimace. Who did this? Shepard demanded. Was it you? Your people? Zelira shook her head, wincing at the movement. No. Not me. Must be. Drexel. My second. Never trusted him. Shepard's mind raced. A traitor in Zelira's ranks, striking at the moment of their meeting. But why? To what end? She had a feeling she wouldn't like the answer. But as she looked down at the wounded alien captain, Shepard knew one thing for certain. The fragile truce between their peoples had just shattered like glass. And picking up the pieces would be a bloody business indeed. The gauntlet. Smoke billowed through the ruined conference room as emergency crews rushed to secure the area. Captain Shepard knelt beside the injured Zelira, applying pressure to a deep gash on the alien's forehead. "Why would your own second-in-command attack you?" Shepard asked, her voice tight with tension. Zelira grimaced, her golden eyes flashing with pain and anger. "Drexel has always been ambitious, seeking to undermine my authority. He believes I am too soft, too willing to negotiate with lesser species like your own." Shepard bit back a retort, focusing on her first aid. "And he thinks blowing us both to hell is the answer." "He is a fool," Zelira spat. "He does not see the bigger picture. Conflict with your alliance would be costly and pointless. But Drexel lusts for glory, not wisdom." Suddenly, the ship-wide comm crackled to life. "Captain Shepard, this is the bridge. We've lost contact with the Katesh. She's gone dark." Shepard's head snapped up, her eyes meeting Zelira's. The Veloxian's face was grim. "Drexel has made his move. He will try to seize control of my ship and attack yours." The human captain was already rising, her hand flying to her comm badge. "Bridge, red alert. Raise shields and charge all weapons. Prepare for incoming hostiles." She turned back to Zelira, extending a hand. "It seems we have a common enemy, Captain. I propose a temporary alliance until this situation is resolved." The alien hesitated for a moment, then clasped Shepard's forearm in a warrior's grip. "Agreed. But do not think this changes anything between us, human. When this is over, we will have a reckoning." Shepard nodded curtly. "Understood. Now let's go hunt down a traitor." As they raced through the Endeavor's corridors, Shepard filled Zelira in on the situation. "We're detecting multiple beam-ins across the ship. Drexel's forces are already on board. They're trying to sabotage our systems and take control." Zelira growled, her eyes narrowing. "He will target your engine room, your armory, your bridge. Standard Veloxian tactics." "We'll head to the armory first," Shepard decided. "Arm ourselves and then work our way to engineering." They rounded a corner and ran straight into a squad of Veloxian warriors. The hulking aliens opened fire immediately, plasma bolts scorching the bulkheads. Shepard and Zelira dove for cover, returning fire with their sidearms. "We need heavier weapons," Shepard shouted over the din of battle. Zelira bared her teeth in a feral grin. "Leave that to me." The Veloxian captain burst from cover, moving with a speed and grace that belied her size. She charged into the midst of the enemy warriors, her fists and feet a blur of motion. Bones crunched and armor shattered under her onslaught, the traitors falling like wheat before a scythe. Shepard provided covering fire, picking off any warrior who tried to flank Zelira. In moments, the corridor was littered with groaning, broken bodies. Zelira stood amid the carnage, her chest heaving. She spat on the fallen and turned to Shepard. "The armory. Quickly, before more come." They raced on, the ship shuddering around them as distant explosions echoed through the halls. The armory was a scene of chaos, with crewmen and Veloxian boarders locked in a desperate firefight. Shepard and Zelira waded into the fray, energy weapons blazing. As the last traitor fell, Shepard's comm badge chirped. "Captain." It was Tara Vasquez, shouting over a cacophony of alarms. "Drexel's forces have taken main engineering. They're trying to overload the reactor core." Shepard's blood ran cold. An overloading core would rip the ship apart, killing everyone on board. "On our way, Tara. Hold them off as long as you can." She turned to Zelira, tossing the alien a pulse rifle. "Time to finish this, Captain. You with me?" Zelira caught the weapon, a predatory smile spreading across her face. "Until the end, human. For glory and honor." Together, they plunged into the bowels of the wounded ship, racing against time to confront the demons of Zelira's past, and save both their futures. The fate of two peoples hung in the balance, and the only way out was through the fire. Demons of the past. The corridors of the TSS Endeavour were a war zone, echoing with the clash of weapons fire and the cries of the wounded. Captain Shepard and Zelira fought their way towards main engineering, a trail of fallen Veloxian traders in their wake. As they paused to catch their breath in a momentary lull, Shepard glanced over at her unlikely ally. Zelira's face was a mask of grim determination, but there was something else lurking in the depths of her golden eyes. Something haunted. "Why do your people follow Drexel?" Shepard asked, reloading her pulse rifle. "Why betray you for him?" Zelira was silent for a long moment, her gaze distant. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy with old pain. "It is my fault. I failed them, long ago. And they have never forgiven me for it." Shepard frowned. "What do you mean?" The Veloxian captain sighed, leaning against the bulkhead. 2 cycles passed, I commanded a different ship. The Kol Resh. We were on a mission deep in uncharted space, seeking new worlds to conquer for the Empire. She closed her eyes, the memories playing out behind her lids. We were ambushed by an unknown species, a race of crystalline beings who could manipulate energy on a quantum level. They tore through our shields like paper, ripped our hull to shreds. Zelira's hands clenched into fists, her claws digging into her palms. I had to make a choice. Stand and fight, and lose everyone under my command. Or retreat, and bear the shame of defeat. I chose the latter. And it cost me everything. Shepard placed a hand on the alien's shoulder, feeling the tension thrumming beneath her armor. You saved your crew, Zelira. That's not weakness, that's strength. The Veloxian's eyes snapped open, blazing with self-recrimination. You don't understand, human. In the Empire, there is no greater disgrace than retreat. My crew looked upon me as a coward, unfit to lead. Drexel used that against me, fanned the flames of their resentment. Suddenly, the ship rocked violently, nearly throwing them off their feet. Alarms blared with renewed urgency, the lights flickering ominously. Shepard's comm badge crackled with static. Captain. It was Tara Vasquez, her voice strained. They've locked us out of the reactor controls. Core temperature is rising fast. You have to stop them. On it, Tara. Shepard turned to Zelira, her expression fierce. We can deal with the past later. Right now, we have a ship to save. Zelira nodded, hefting her rifle. Lead the way, Captain. They burst into main engineering like a thunderbolt, energy weapons spitting death. The cavernous space was a hellscape of smoke and fire, consoles sparking and exploding under a hail of plasma bolts. In the center of the chaos stood Drexel, his black armor painted with the blood of fallen crewmen. The traitorous Veloxian held a battered Jack Tanner before him as a shield, a wicked-looking blade pressed to the human's throat. Ah, Captain Zelira, Drexel called out, his voice dripping with mockery. Come to witness the fall of the mighty Terran Alliance. To see the weakness of your human pets exposed. Zelira snarled, her finger tightening on the trigger of her rifle. The only weakness I see is yours, Drexel. Using a hostage. You dishonor yourself and the Empire. Drexel laughed, a cruel, twisted sound. Honor? You dare speak to me of honor, you who fled from battle like a mewling cub? No, Zelira. I will forge a new future for our people, one where the strong rule over the weak as is our right. Shepard edged forward, her aim unwavering. It's over, Drexel. Release my officer and step away from the reactor controls. Don't make this any worse for yourself. The traitor's eyes glittered with madness. Oh, it's far too late for that, human. With a savage twist of his wrist, Drexel drew his blade across Tanner's throat in a spray of crimson. The first officer crumpled to the deck, his life bleeding out in a spreading pool. No. Shepard screamed, anguish and rage boiling up inside her like a volcanic eruption. Time seemed to slow down, each heartbeat an eternity. In that crystallized moment, Tanner's eyes found hers, a silent plea and a benediction all in one. With his last breath, he mouthed a single word. Go. And then he was surging upward, his dying body slamming into Drexel with the force of a runaway freight train. The two grappled, Drexel's blade flashing as Tanner's blood painted them both. Seizing the moment, Shepard lined up her shot and pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt took Drexel square in the chest, burning through his armor like tissue paper. The traitor staggered back, his eyes wide with shock and pain. But even as he fell, Drexel's hand found the reactor controls, his claws stabbing down on the override sequence. The console exploded in a shower of sparks and shattered metal, alarms shrieking like the damned. Core overload imminent, the computer announced, its voice terrifyingly calm. Detonation in T-minus 60 seconds. Shepard leaped over the bodies of friend and foe alike, her hands flying over the ruined controls. Zelira joined her, the two captains working in desperate harmony to avert catastrophe. The seconds ticked away like gunshots, each one bringing them closer to oblivion. Sweat poured down Shepard's face as she tore through layers of failsafes and security protocols, Zelira's claws a blur on the keys beside her. 20 seconds, the computer intoned. 19. 18. With a final, desperate keystroke, Shepard slammed her fist down on the emergency abort. The reactor's wailing klaxons cut off abruptly, the wildly fluctuating readouts stabilizing as the core cooled. Silence descended on main engineering, broken only by the hiss of ruptured plasma conduits and the groans of the wounded. Shepard sagged against the console, her uniform drenched with sweat and blood. Beside her, Zelira looked little better, her golden eyes haunted and exhausted. Is it over? Shepard asked, her voice raw. No, Zelira replied, her gaze distant. It's only the beginning. My people, there will be consequences for what has happened here. Shepard straightened, wiping the soot from her face. Then we'll face them together. Your people and mine. As allies, and as friends. She held out her hand, an offering and a promise. After a moment, Zelira reached out and clasped it firmly, the first tender shoot of trust blossoming amid fields of grief and pain. The road ahead would be long and hard, paved with sacrifice and strife. But in that moment, a bridge had been built. One that would span the gulf between stars and souls, and light the way to a brighter future for all. It was a beginning, born of endings. A dawn rising from the ashes of the night. And it would change the galaxy forever. Gravitational bonds. The TSS Endeavour limped back to Earth, its hull scarred and battered, its crew bruised but unbroken. Beside it flew the Katesh, its silver skin equally marred by the marks of battle. In the Endeavour's sickbay, Captain Shepard sat beside a recovering Zelira, the two leaders sharing a moment of quiet amid the bustle of medics and engineers. Your world is heavy, Shepard, Zelira said, her voice still weak from her injuries. In more ways than one. The human captain smiled wryly. Gravity is the least of it. We carry the weight of our choices, our histories. It's what makes us who we are. Zelira nodded, her golden eyes thoughtful. I am beginning to understand that. My choices have shaped me, for good and ill. I must learn from them, not be defined by them. Shepard placed a hand on her arm, a gesture of solidarity. You've taken the first step, Zelira. Admitting our mistakes, our regrets, that's the hardest part. Everything after that is just putting one foot in front of the other. The Veloxian chuckled softly. One foot on a world that seeks to crush us beneath its weight. But it makes us stronger, Shepard countered. Stronger than we ever thought possible. Zelira met her gaze, a newfound respect kindling in those alien eyes. Indeed it does, Captain. Indeed it does. The journey to understanding between their peoples was just beginning, a delicate dance of diplomacy and discovery. But as the two ships sailed onwards through the stars, a new hope was born, a hope for a future forged in the fires of adversity, tempered by the gravity of two worlds and the strength of those who called them home. 1 week later, the Endeavour and the Katesh hung in orbit above the blue-green jewel of Earth, a pair of silver sparks against the velvet blackness of space. In the Endeavour's main shuttle bay, a crowd had gathered, humans and Veloxians alike, standing in rows like soldiers on parade. But there was no hostility now, no suspicion or fear. Only curiosity, and the cautious first stirrings of friendship. Captain Shepard stood at the front of the assembly, resplendent in her dress uniform, the medals on her chest glinting in the light. Beside her stood Zalaira, clad in the formal robes of a Veloxian dignitary, her silver hair braided with strands of gold. Crew of the Endeavour, warriors of the Katesh, Shepard began, her voice ringing out across the cavernous space. We have gathered here today to mark a new beginning, a new chapter in the story of our peoples. She gestured to Zalaira, a smile playing at her lips. Captain Zalaira and I have learned much from each other in these past days. About strength and weakness, about pride and humility, and about the bonds that can grow between unlikely allies. Zalaira stepped forward, her bearing regal yet somewhat uncomfortable in the unfamiliar robes. My people have long believed that strength is everything, she said, her gaze sweeping the assembled throng. That the weak must be crushed beneath the boots of the mighty. But I have seen a different kind of strength in you humans, a strength of spirit, of resilience in the face of adversity. She turned to face Shepard, respect and something more shining in her eyes. Your captain showed me that true power lies not in conquest, but in unity. In standing together against the darkness, no matter the cost. Shepard nodded, her own eyes suspiciously bright. And in turn, Zalaira has taught us the value of tradition, of honor and sacrifice in service of a greater cause. Though we come from different worlds, different cultures, we are not so different in the end. The human captain squared her shoulders, her voice ringing with conviction. Today, we forge a new alliance, a new understanding between the children of Earth and the warriors of Veloxa. An alliance built on respect, on trust, and on the knowledge that together, we are stronger than we could ever be alone. A cheer went up from the gathered crews, human voices mingling with Veloxian roars in a cacophony of celebration. Shepard and Zalaira clasped hands, the gesture a symbol of unity that would resonate across the stars. But even as the cheers echoed through the shuttle bay, Zalaira leaned in close, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Of course, some of my warriors still question the strength of humans, she murmured, her voice pitched for Shepard's ears alone. They doubt that a species from such a high-gravity world could ever truly be our equals. Shepard's eyebrow arched, a challenge gleaming in her gaze. Is that so? Well then, perhaps a demonstration is in order. She turned back to the crowd, her voice booming out once more. In the spirit of our newfound alliance, I invite any warrior of the Katesh to step forward and test their strength against the gravity of Earth. To feel for themselves the power that has shaped us, body and soul. A murmur rippled through the Veloxian contingent, surprise and anticipation mingling in their alien features. For a moment, no one moved. Then, with the ringing of steel against steel, one of Zalaira's guards stepped forward, his massive frame encased in black and silver armor. He strode to the front of the assembly, his steps heavy and assured. But as he crossed the threshold of the shuttle bay, as the full weight of Earth's gravity settled upon him like a leaden cloak, he stumbled, his knees buckling beneath him. A gasp went up from the Veloxians, shock and disbelief writ large upon their faces. The guard struggled to rise, his muscles straining against the inexorable pull of the planet below. And then, to the amazement of all, Shepard was there beside him, her hand extended in offering. The human captain hauled the massive Veloxian to his feet, the cords of her muscles standing out like steel cables beneath her uniform. Not so easy, is it? She asked, a wry grin playing across her features. But that's the thing about humans. We don't let the weight of our world hold us down. We rise above it, grow stronger because of it. The Veloxian guard looked down at her, respect and wonder warring in his gaze. I see that now, Captain, he rumbled, his voice thick with emotion. I see the strength that lies within you, within all of your kind. One by one, the other Veloxians stepped forward, each one eager to test themselves against the gravity of humanity's homeworld. And one by one, they fell to their knees, humbled and awed by the power that had shaped the human race. But always, Shepard and her crew were there to lift them up, to stand with them as equals and as friends. And as the laughter and the cheers rang out once more, as the bonds of understanding grew stronger with each passing moment, a new era was born, a dawn of unity and hope that would light the way to a brighter future for all the peoples of the galaxy. And at the center of it all stood two captains, two warriors from different worlds, united by the gravity of their choices and the strength of their convictions. Together, they would face the challenges to come. Together, they would forge a new path among the stars. For in the end, it was not the pull of a planet that defined them, but the strength of the bonds they had forged in the fire of adversity.